Record on this computer. Zoom.
Bum. There we go. I keep losing Zoom. Where has it gone?
This is a long time coming, Bob.
I know, yeah. We had a false start, didn't we?
Yeah, you're so busy though with all your other podcasts.
Good. Oh, it's ridiculous. I've got 3 this week. They're all different. I just don't know.
Very good. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, man.
Okay. G'day, audiophiles. You are listening to the Sirens of Audio. We are with you again. My name is Dwayne. I'm your host, and with me is Philip. G'day, Philip.
G'day, Dwayne. G'day, listeners. Good to be here again.
And joining us for this very, very special occasion is someone that I've been wanting to get onto this show for a long time, because it was his podcast that actually inspired me to do a podcast. And that's Bob Fleming from Progtor Who. How are you, Bob?
I'm very well, yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. For you, is it morning?
We're all over the place. It's evening here.
Cool. It's lunchtime for me. It's and I've just woken up. Actually, it's quite bad, isn't it? But I've got a little son, and he kept me awake. So I've managed to have a little sleep. It was lovely.
So what's happening in your world of podcasts at the moment? You're all over the place with your podcasts. It's not in a sort of disorganized way, but you're in a lot of them. Let's put it that way.
Well, I do obviously Progtor. Took on Progtor Who a few months ago from Mark, who's having a rest. But obviously, me and Mark and Craig were the originals on that, and that's cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a good show. Good people on it, and good funny people, and just nice people, and it's a good crack. It's like our Friday night out at the moment, because there's not lockdown and all that. Apparently it's eased, but I'm not going out because the government have told me to, and I don't believe them. So yeah, that's Progtor Who. That's a lot of fun. So check that out in Google. We're on iTunes and all that kind of stuff. It's worth a listen. And then I do Track This Out, which is a Star Trek podcast. I'm a super nerd, and I love it. And that's a cool podcast. It's we review, basically it's like both. We review it if it's on the telly, usually on a weekly basis, and when it's not on telly, we review all episodes or previous episodes and stuff like that. On Track This Out, there's 2 members from Progtor Who in the form of John and Stucky, and then we've got 2 ladies, Lindsay and Andrea, on that as well. And that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, a lot of different opinions. There's not many podcasts that sort of have boys and girls on in the sort of nerd world. So it's quite nice. They usually have like a female one or an all male one kind of thing. So it's nice to get the opinions all together. They're a good set of people. They're a good laugh. And that is just literally reviewing and having a laugh. Whereas Progtor Who, we play songs and music as well. So yeah, that's my main team. And I've started a new one with John, again from Progtor Who, and Track This Out, and a guy called Cliff Shepherd, who does a podcast called Shep's Deep Dive. He does film reviews and things like that. And that's called The Lynch Mob. We've done our first 2, so we're just reviewing David Lynch films. And that's.
So which movies have you covered in the first 2?
We've just done Fire Walk with Me. I've just completed Twin Peaks, but we did Fire Walk with Me, and then we've done Mulholland Drive, which was an absolute it's just genius. It's really hard doing this because with Lynch, there's no argument, because it's left to your imagination what you perceive it to be, if you see what I mean. So it's not necessarily opinion, it's trying to work out your theory and metaphor. So it's quite interesting, because so there's no like, not arguing, but like it's more about like what you perceive it to be. So it's a bit of a different podcast, but it's cool. If you're a Lynch fan, it's on Shep's Deep Dive podcast feed. And I think when we finish the Lynch films, we're going to just go through all of Twin Peaks. So that's my 3 things I'm doing. That's my main three things. And they're all brilliant and cool, and I love doing them. They're a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to the... Sorry, Phil.
I was saying, it sounds really fascinating. And I look forward to Twin Peaks, because that was certainly a show in my youth that caused many discussions. I still remember this bar scene with llamas in the background. And we discussed for half an hour why the llamas were there.
Exactly. That's the beauty of the Lynch stuff. It's great because you're not wrong. He just leaves everything open to you. He doesn't tell you what he thinks it's about, because it ruins it for you. It's like a painting or something like that. You know, it's how you perceive it to be, like a song, or it's a piece of art basically. What he does, and it's super cool and super clever and funny. Yeah, so I'm coming off the back of that. So my head's a bit scrambled because he's bonkers in a great way. So yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm a giggy musician, but not at the moment with the current situation. So I've not done a gig for, oh my God, about 5 months, I think it is now. So yeah, that's the only disappointment. But everything else is awesome. I've got a little baby who's been keeping us entertained in lockdown. And yeah, just doing cool podcasts with awesome, cool people like yourselves as well. So
how do you keep in practice? How do you keep in practice as a musician? Do you?
I picked up a guitar yesterday. No, I just haven't done anything. I literally haven't picked up a guitar for 3 months. I picked one up yesterday, and it really hurt. So I need to practice again, because basically when you're playing guitar, you get calluses on your fingers, so they're quite hard, and my calluses are completely gone, so it hurts, and so I need to just practice. And you know, if the eventuality does come on, we can gig again, which I don't see anytime soon. I'll be ready to go. So yeah,
very good. Well, it wasn't actually through Doctor Who that I got to meet you and Mark originally. It was through Mark, because I did a radio show years ago, and I met Mark through his band Riversea. When he'd released some new music, I discovered him through Prog magazine, of all things, and then
yes.
so we became friends on Facebook. And when he started, he discovered that I liked Doctor Who, I think because he might have had himself dressed up in a Fourth Doctor scarf or something next to us. And I went, you're a Doctor Who fan. So we discovered that way. And then he introduced me to Progtor Who right from episode 1, and I've been following ever since. It's been one of the few podcasts that I've sort of religiously followed right from the start. And I've had many, many hours of fun and laughter. Although I do skip songs from time to time when Craig's in charge.
I skip my own songs sometimes. It's fun. It's an eclectic mix of people with different opinions, and that's what I love.
Awesome.
And we're all great friends. That's the main thing. It's just fun. It's great. It's my night out. It always has been like my night out with the boys in the pub. But we're talking about Doctor Who. But really geeky, talking about Doctor Who, and it's lovely.
But you're such an eclectic bunch as well, like Suki and Craig. You and John are almost like two peas in a pod, but the four of you together, you're such an eclectic bunch. It's really fun to listen to. So
I would definitely not. I imagine John would take great offence from that comment. The way I look at John is, he's like my educator. So it's about you. What he sort of says. He's Stephen Fry, and I'm Alan Davis off QI. So it's a constant education process for me. That's what John is.
Very good. All right, so we're here to talk about a specific Big Finish audio that you were chomping at the bit a few months back to come on and talk to me about. It's your favourite. What's your relationship with audio drama in general? Is it something that you listen a lot to?
No. I'll be honest. I did when Doctor Who was off air. I'd get my hands on anything I possibly could. In the dark times. One was obviously Big Finish stuff, Virgin books in general, just whatever could get my hands on that was New Who, I would do. I struggle with audio. I mean, I have listened to a lot of the Big Finish stuff, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that kind of stuff, as well, which I love. I love Hitchhikers, both the books and the radio and the TV show. But I struggle. I get lost, like I have to listen to them 2 or 3 times. I have to really invest. And I think if it's something you start with from the beginning, which I kind of did with Big Finish, you get that once a month thing. So you have a month to process it, listen to it, really enjoy it like you would do with a new TV episode of Doctor Who or whatever. Whereas I think now, as you're so much, it's hard to focus on one thing. And I think the instantaneous access to a lot of stuff as well, you sort of give it 5 minutes, and if you're not into it, you move on. Whereas when it originally was out, you didn't have all this internet kind of as it is now. So it was like buying a record or whatever. You had to buy it and cherish it kind of thing. And I think that monthly thing was very special. at the time, and now they'll do episodes about, like, I don't know, Capaldi's toenail. They'll do an episode. Do you know what I mean? They seem like they'll just do anything. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying they're bad at all. A lot of the stuff they produced is brilliant. It's brilliantly produced. But I think the one that stands out for me is Spare Parts, because I get it. I get this one all the way through, and I did from the first time I heard it. I think the only other one I got was the 50th anniversary Big Finish episode. I can't remember what it was called now, when all the doctors, were in it and all that kind of stuff. I got that, but I just don't get them. And I wish I could go back and really invest in Big Finish from the beginning on the monthly basis, but I can't. So it's all sort of, there's so much going on, isn't there? But back then there wasn't. Bit of a shame.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Philip, as regards the volume of material that we've got these days? How have you ever put yourself in the shoes of someone who hasn't heard the last 20 years worth of material and has to go back and try and work out what to listen to?
It's certainly a giant catalogue that's there now, and I guess to try and go back, for me, I've been buying it from the very start, so it's just sitting there, has always been there. It must be quite a huge task for people who come now to work out where to go from, but they do keep putting plenty of jumping off points, and then there's certain productions that are always recommended. And of course, Spare Parts is always top of anyone's list. There's 3 or 4 that get mentioned that you must listen to, and this is always in the first 3 or 4 that people say go back and get. So yeah, it's hard, it's overwhelming, but the stuff's good and there's lots of range, and they're business, so they have to make choices about what's going to sell and what's not going to sell, and they've got to capture the modern audience as well as the old audience. When Spare Parts came out, it was 2002. There was no other Doctor Who around. The TV series wasn't even a thought, really. I don't think it was even there weren't any even rumours that it was coming back yet in 2002. So this is very early. We just had the second season of Paul McGann's, who was the current Doctor and still felt like the current Doctor. And then this was the first show after that, Spare Parts. So it stands out in terms of you've had this lovely run of brilliant shows, 6 great shows with the modern Doctor. Then you've got to Peter Davison. And I suspect this is still probably his best performance and his best show he's had with Big Finish, because his performance is spectacular. It's the caves around Zani, Peter Davison. It's the one who's vulnerable but tough, who's unsure but certain. And so he gives a pretty masterful performance, and Sarah Sutton's at the top of her game as well. So yeah, I love this show.
I was going to say the McGann stuff, that I did invest in that, because, like you were saying there, Philip, that was the TV series, if you see what I mean, the continuation of what would have been. And I think Paul McGann is just incredible. Like, I just wish he would come back as a Doctor on television as well. That whole thing of quite like his face, and then cracked on when we've got that tease of in the Night of the Doctor, whatever it was, the little 5 minute thing. It was just amazing, seeing him without the silly wig and just seeing him in this full action gear and all that, and just how it could be. And he's a brilliant Doctor. And it's sad it never got televised, but it's brilliant that the Big Finish range continued with him. And there's a lot of different stuff going on, and he's such a sensitive sensitive, lovely Doctor, very different from any other Doctor. I think you can't sort of put him. But you can liken McCoy to Troughton and Matt Smith. Do you see what I mean? And you can liken certain Capaldi to Baker, but you can't liken McGann to any of the Doctor, that's what I love about Paul McGann.
Yeah, you're right there.
I hadn't really thought too much about that before, but that is a completely valid point. Very valid point.
Thank you. I occasionally make them. Occasionally.
So, Dwayne, what's your experience with Spare Parts?
It was one of the very first Big Finish audios that I heard, because I came into the range a couple of years after it started. I'd heard about Sirens of Time, didn't get myself a copy, and then someone loaned me Chimes of Midnight, Spare Parts, and a few others. And Obviously, if you're going to get Chimes of Midnight Spare Parts, they're two of the most classic episodes you could possibly get from Big Finish. Chimes is still my favourite, but Spare Parts, I'm always interested in Genesis stories for some reason. The Daleks are interesting because they've got seemingly a couple of different Genesis stories, although you can work the Daleks and Genesis of the Daleks in together. But yeah, the Cybermen never had that Genesis story on television, so it was fascinating to go right back into that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about Mark Platt. Sometimes I absolutely find Mark Platt's writing incomprehensible almost, but sometimes it is just mind-blowingly good, and this is one of the ones. I mean, at this stage, Mark Platt had only written one other Big Finish episode. It was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Lugaroo, the werewolf story, which was brilliant as well. So that was another straightforward story, not complicated, a fantastic Big Finish story that doesn't get enough mention in my books, but it's overtaken by Spare Parts. And I've always been fascinated by the Mondassian Cybermen as well. So to hear those come to life, I've always found them the creepiest, right from the first time I saw the 10th Planet. And yeah, I always felt it was a shame that they kind of left that kind of form and went to the more metallic robot-like, Troughton-like Cybermen. But
they're super spooky.
They are. But perhaps that's why they changed them. Maybe they thought they were too scary for the kids at the time. I don't know.
I think the 10th Planet Cybermen were just considered to be too cheap. They'd thrown it together on a costume budget. They just poured it together as fast as they could because of what they were doing. And then when they decided to bring them back, that's when they decided to spend some money on them, which is interesting because I think it was probably a bad call. Because as you say, the Mondassian Cybermen are the most creepy, uncomfortable ones that they are. But at the time, I think the view was, they're just cheap. We'll put them into full metal suits and that will be better for the kiddies. So it's interesting that once again, the show recently decided to bring them back properly as the Mondassian Cybermen, which once again have actually proven to be such a huge success when they did bring them back. So at the time, cheap and nice, but now they're seen as actually know what the underlying meaning behind them being people, and you could still see real hands, you could see all the flesh parts. Wow.
I think it's the thing though, as an adult, or as you grow, that you do see them as the spooky sort of body horror thing. But I think as a kid or younger, I mean, I used to think that when I was younger, I thought they were rubbish because I'd seen the other versions of the Cybermen in the 80s and things like that, and I thought, oh, they're magnificent. But then, but I didn't have the perception of horror. I just saw this very silly thing opening its mouth, like that. It was a bit daft. Whereas now, even in the 10th Planet, they were a lot more chilling than any other Cybermen. That's for sure. But as a kid, I just thought they were daft. Weird, isn't it? Because usually you go the other way, don't you? Like as a kid, you believe all this stuff that you see because Doctor Who, sometimes have the best looking monsters and that. And then, you usually like that when you're older, you sort of realise that as a kid you don't. It's the opposite way around for me personally. Anyway, with the Mondassian Cybermen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they ended up being much spookier. And so when Stephen Moffat brought them back in his World Enough in Time, they really were powerful when they brought them back.
They really were. It was a case of a tiny bit of fear, but complete excitement. Just seeing them, it was just beautiful to see how they stood up, on a 4K TV, in 2017 or whatever. It was just it was lovely to see. I'm pleased Peter Capaldi was adamant about bringing them back. That was part of the deal, I think, with Moffat was bring back the Mondassian Cybermen, and I'll be happy, and he did.
Now I know for a fact that your era of classic Doctor Who is the McCoy era, Bob. So you're a huge fan of McCoy and the Carter years in particular. Do you think you've connected in some level with Spare Parts even more because it's written by Mark Platt, someone who was involved in that era of Doctor Who?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I didn't know who this was written by. When I first heard it, I just listened to it and I just absolutely adored it. I mean, I'll come in a bit more deep with the reasons why it did. But it's mainly the tone, the soundscape. It's very eerie, very spooky. The people in it are brilliant. The cast are awesome and very Northern English, which is cool as well. And it's an understandable story. You don't have to work it out, if that makes sense. It's all there for you. And that's one of the main things I love about it. And I also love one of my favourite monsters in Doctor Who is the Cybermen, and I've never ever had any justice done to them particularly. They're always a bit they're not the Daleks, and they don't get the power and things they deserve, because the concept of the Cybermen is brilliant. Like when you see the Borg in Star Trek, that is one of the most spooky, scary monsters in science fiction. This whole thing of converting, they obviously do it slightly different, but the Cybermen converting you and all this kind of thing en masse. It's horrible, like I said, body horror idea, which has never really been fully executed properly in Doctor Who. Maybe Earthshock, that's a cool episode. Maybe World Enough in Time, but they always, and probably the last Whittaker one as well, they were a bit more powerful then, but they've never really had the sort of rub of the green. And Genesis Cybermen, they just get everything in this. This is the one I would love to see on TV. I'd love to see Mark Platt adapt it into a book. It just has everything. And as Philip was saying before, Peter Davison, this is first class. So Sarah Sutton, and I love them two together. I can't remember which adventure it was on the TV show. There was one where Tegan buggered off for a bit for an episode, for a story. It was just them two. And some people perceive it to be bland, but I think them two really work well together as a companion assistant. Just them two together.
Arc of Infinity, I think you're talking about.
Arc of Infinity, that's it. Yes. And Tegan unfortunately comes back again. I love Tegan, I'm trying. But it's them two together, I think, are brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and Peter Davison always says that he loves just having the one companion. So I think when he does Big Finish stories with just one companion, he enjoys it a bit more, because I think you can tell sometimes when Peter Davison's enjoying a story or not enjoying a story that he's doing. Would you agree with that, Philip?
Yes, I think it's interesting having spoken to Peter, Colin and Sylvester, all of them, about how they prepare for their big finishes. Colin and Sylvester both put a lot of work into reading the script beforehand, thinking it through. Colin in particular does a lot of prep work, thinks through the lines, thinks through the characters, comes with suggestions and ideas, is very active. Peter admits he often hasn't even read the script before he turns up. He's turning the page and just reading the lines off the page. I think, Peter's not quite so into the prep and doesn't take it all quite so seriously as some of the others do. But I think that's.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think that's Colin Baker's benefit, though, because he never got a fair go at being a Doctor on television. Immediately from having a stupid costume and being told to play it like that, he had moments of being really good. But on Big Finish, he's put the time, like you're saying, put the time and effort in, and it's really paid off. His Doctor on Big Finish is brilliant. It's a great Doctor.
The writers work really hard for writing for him too. Once again, I think Peter was often shortchanged in the series. I think in terms of excellent scripts he didn't have that many, nor did Colin, admittedly.
Yeah.
But a lot of Peter's would tend to be a lot bland. And I think even the Big Finish, sometimes a lot of his Big Finish work can be a bit bland too, which I think why this stands out. I think the thing that strikes me in terms of what you were saying before about the show is just having that family and having the first 2-3 episodes revolve around a family. And then you have other characters interacting with them, but you see the whole horror of what's happening told through a real close-knit group. And that actually makes it all the more effective. It's interesting. I was reflecting on the fact that this is 2 episodes after Adric died, in terms of chronology. Because Adric's died in Earthshock. You've had time flight. Tegan's left. So who knows how long this and the Doctor were travelling for? But it's in that period of only that. You would have thought there might have been more made of Adric. I mean, this alludes to the fact that she's had a friend die at the hands of the Cybermen. I think if they remade this today, there'd actually be a lot more play on that emotion. But they didn't need to do it then. They actually just went for just the story and just for the characters who were there.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew Waterhouse has come back now and worked a lot as Adric for Big Finish, so now we know how good he can actually be.
I love Matthew Waterhouse. I've had a weird relationship with Adric. As a kid, I really liked him. And then he just becomes he's not the best actor as a kid. And there's reasons and things like that. But I watched a great documentary on the Blu-ray sets. I don't know if you guys get them over there. The Blu-ray box sets are bringing out. And on, I think it's season 18 box set, there's a Weekend with Waterhouse, which Toby Haydock goes and spends a weekend with Matthew Waterhouse. And Matthew Waterhouse is just an absolute lovely, lovely man. And a proper fanboy. I mean, I didn't realise he was a massive, huge Doctor Who fan. When he got the role of sci-fi in general, and it's one of the best documentaries I've ever watched on a Doctor Who, on the extras on Doctor Who Blu-rays and things and DVDs, and I would highly recommend it. So my opinion of Adric and things has changed, and also when I because you got 18 and 19 the seasons come out on this Blu-ray, and I watched them all sort of back to back in order, which I've never really done before. I appreciate his character a lot more because he is in this struggle. He is an adolescent. He is this stroppy child. And see, when you take it from that point of view, it's a lot better. Whereas when you dip it in, you just see this annoying guy just not being very good at acting. But if you watch it as a continuation, it's quite interesting.
So Adric is the first companion to be completely released on Blu-ray.
Yes.
Which one's? Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
18 and 19.
I think I have three phases of Edric. As a kid, I really liked him. I loved Edric. I think I related to him and thought, oh yeah, really, really loved him. Then, as a slightly older fan, he was just a whinging, complaining, no good. Why did they bother to put him in? But more recently, I've gone back and watched the show and realised he actually wasn't that painful.
Yeah.
My memory of him was he always betrayed the Doctor. He was never faithful. He was always whining, complaining. It's actually very rare that happens. Most of the shows, actually, he's actually quite useful and quite productive, and so my views have actually changed. I struggle with him in the audios now because I think his voice has changed so much that I don't recognise him as Adric. So I struggle with listening to him now.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Philip, because I think he sounds really incredibly like Adric. If you listen to one of the first box set that he appeared on, which I think was 2 stories, Iterations of I and Psychodrome, he was really struggling on those to get the voice right, but I think he's picked himself up a lot since then and is a lot closer to how he was. So, how do we get on to Adric anyway? From,
He died. No, it's a lie.
The end, full stop.
Adric, you died.
Okay, so let's...
just go... Sorry, go on.
No, you go, Bob.
You carry on. Well, I was just going to say, the casting on this is tremendous. There's some lovely, lovely people in spare parts. I love... It's Paul Copley. Is it Paul Copley?
Yeah.
He's just such a lovely man. Ideal for playing, this kind of northern father role. And you also, isn't the guy from Tigana from Marco Polo in it as well?
Darren Nesbitt.
Thomas Dodd, the dodgy geezer.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that's what I kind of like is the split. I love the when obviously you get that little bit of the TV bit before to gauge what's going on. That it goes in with the Doctor and Nyssa, and then they separate. But I also love Peter Davis's apprehension, because when the Doctor's apprehensive, there's a massive severity to what's happening. When he's not wanting to go and explore, and they're like, let's just go off for half an hour. And you get Nyssa finding his family, so you get in the exposition really cleverly done with a fantastic ensemble of people, like Philip was saying before. It's just lovely. Then and it's there the element of the sort of cyberization, if you like. So they're using machine parts. The dad has the chest thing and all this kind of stuff. So therefore it seems more positive being cyberized to a degree. And then you've got the other aspect of the Doctor going off and finding Thomas Dodd, who deals in body parts. You know what I mean? And that's seen as like sinister, and sort of dark web kind of thing. and that's what we do. You know, we transplant organs. If you think about it, you know, in our society, you know, we have the facility to transplant organs, whereas that's seen as being sort of black market and cyberization or machine parts, aren't it? And I love that split. You know, initially you're thinking that's bad, that's good, and it's, you know, and obviously as it transpires, it isn't. But again, like Philip was saying before, the first 2 episodes was very hinged on this very small cast, and that's how it's very understandable. And again, harking back to the sounds on this, they're just so eerie and perfect. It's just, they're not overwhelming. Everything is just absolutely on the nail from a production point of view, I think, as well. And then it just kicks off from there into more sinister, awesome horribleness.
I also really enjoyed Sally Navette as well from Blake 7, which I know you don't know about, Bob. But Sally was great as the Dr. Man, Dr.
Yes.
Man Allen. And it was interesting the way they had man at the end of every title, like you had the Sister Man as well, which was, it's strange, but somehow it adds an element of total creepiness to the story to add that on the end of every title. And I don't know, they had some, I don't know if you noticed, but the sister man was walking around saying, "Heaven bless you all." I couldn't work out whether there were religious overtones or whether she was a nurse. She was kind of a bit of both, wasn't she? So there were kind of religious overtones in there too, which didn't really delve into. Did it delve into it? You listened to it today, Philip. So was there anything else?
No, it was interesting. When they first started Sister, I was assuming nurse, and then they talked about an order, which I guess is still nurses, but they did seem like a bit of religion behind it all. But I think it was the concept. I think was more, I don't know, because she was gathering acolytes too. There was a bit of overlap between the 2 ideas. But yeah, I thought the Sister Man, the Doctor Man, the Cyberman was a clever way of putting it all in. But yeah, Sally Navette for me too was my pick of performances because huge Blake 7 fan I am too. Yeah. And so hearing Sally, and she's very different in this role. She didn't play it like Jenna at all. So hearing her play an amoral character so strongly was good.
Yeah, they were all spot on, and it was kind of like I said, they were on the side of just, you know, they were perceiving themselves to be portraying that they were the good side, and obviously, you know, they're working. Is it called the commission, isn't it? Is that what they call them?
The committee.
The sort of the committee, so that you've got all that element. It's sort of. So you've got the sinister overlord, as you do in Doctor Who a lot. It's cool. And then it's all this believing in this thing, you know, to get to the planet's surface and all this kind of thing, just to get... It's just awesome. I just love the whole concept of it. Because it's a very small concept. And then it's not really. It's this evolution of something that you can believe as well.
Well, it only touches on it ever so slightly in the story as to why the Cybermen needed to be created in the first place. Apart from their bodies wearing out, I think the Cybermen were being converted to go up and work on the engines for moving the planet through between the galaxies, wasn't it? Wasn't that why?
To maintain the environmental dome. So in terms of their survival was dependent on the dome, and only Cybermen could go outside and work because it was the conditions were too harsh for humans. So they had to create something that could actually work outside and maintain the dome so they could maintain life.
Yeah.
Now Russell T Davis says that in terms of stories, this is one of the best stories told in any form. I was wondering what you guys thought in terms of how many ideas from this story would later be played upon in the TV series when it came back 3 years later and beyond. So what ideas do you see that came from this to the modern show?
I think they took a lot from it. The first double part Cybermen Adventures, Age of Steel and something else. Because I think initially he wanted Mark Platt to do it, but they went for this sort of cheesy, not nowhere near as good thing, stealing ideas from it. But the execution was poor. And you definitely get that coming back in the Capaldi Cybermen, obviously with the Mondassian Cybermen coming back and all that kind of thing. But you get it in this. I mean, it very much is obviously it's not going to the planet's surface or whatever, but this sort of evolution, and it's not just the fact that Mondassian Cybermen, but it's definitely taking the parts from this one. Even the sort of sounds and the things like that, it's proper eerie and spooky. But I think they really missed a trick when they first brought back the Cybermen in the new series, that they didn't go with Mark Platt and just do this. It would have been hard. I think you could have done this with Capaldi, or later on when the show had established itself. And I think Moffat would have done this. He would have brought back Mark Platt. But because they sort of did a half-assed, cheesy version, they could never really sort of do it again, because they really did take a lot from this.
See, Mark Platt was actually thanked to the credits, so they did actually thank Mark Platt.
Was he?
Yeah, so in the credits, he's actually thanked in Age of Steel.
So,
they should have done this, because it'd been awesome.
It makes me wonder what negotiations may have been had with Mark Platt, because obviously there's Cybermen in that story, but I don't see too many elements from spare parts actually used in that television episode. Is there anything specific you can think of that was actually used?
Well, no, I think it's that whole upgrade thing. It's this aspiration that you are better, cyberized or whatever. Because you got that Lumix. I've not seen it for a long time, but it's just something that I always remember wishing they'd done it as spare parts, and they'd sort of half-assed done spare parts. I understand why they didn't, because I sort of touched it before. Doing spare parts this time would have been a big risk, which I believe would have paid off. So they set it in the modern day, that kind of thing. You've got phones and upgrades, and so they're trying to, because they're always trying to sort of bring some form of reality to the series before they started getting a bit braver. So yeah, I do take a lot from. I just look at it as a very, very poor man's spare parts.
I was thinking that they used the family idea, because you actually had the terrorist of the family, and then you also had Rose's mum and dad being part of the family. You had the production line stuff, and actually all lined up and being churned through and being changed through, which is part of the fourth episode of Spare Parts. So I do think actually there's a lot more ideas taken and played around with and changed, so it wouldn't look too much the same. But the storytelling is very much looking at a family in the bigger picture, and then a couple of cogs in the main cyber production. So you actually had the cyber controller kind of thing with Lumez and what's going on there. The other thing that struck me too, which I hadn't realized before today, was you actually have two versions of Cybermen in Spare Parts. Because you have the Mondassian Cybermen originally, and they're Zeng with the name, but they do an upgrade version. And the voice, Nick Briggs changed his voice to be the moon-based Cyberman for the upgrade. Yeah. So you actually have two versions of Cybermen in the same story, which of course will become later on with Peter Capaldi. So you do actually have two Cybermen, and the Cyber Controller. So I hadn't realized those Nick Briggs is working his skills greatly to get all those different voices happening in that one story.
What are your thoughts on Nick Briggs as the voice of the Cybermen in this one?
Brilliant, as always. He's great, and he's given a continuity to the voices he does as well, particularly with the older or classic monsters. In this, I think he's just great. You recognise the Cybermen, in all forms. The Mondassian voice, he stayed true to that anyway, the TV show, as he did in this, and it's just great. And it's, like I said, it gives it some continuity. Just to touch on Nick Briggs, for example, his Dalek voice, which I think is superb. I think it's the best and most sort of scary Dalek voice. And that is evident when they redid Day of the Daleks. Because I watched Day of the Daleks, and I was like, this is all right. It kind of didn't feel like the Daleks. And then when they did the overdub with Nick Briggs and the slightly new effects and things, it is a tremendous story. It adds so much to it. You don't realise how much it adds to it until it's there for you. It takes it from like an all right story to just, wow, this is cool. It's a really good, strong Dalek story. But yeah, I think Nick Briggs, as always, is great.
I think we underplay voice artists too much. And Nick Briggs is amazing with what he manages to do with so many different voices, different characters. The new series wouldn't, I don't think, have worked anywhere near successfully with him. But it's interesting, he isn't actually viewed, I don't think, as an actor enough. And I don't think people realize how hard being a voice actor is, how hard it is to get motivation and emotion or no emotion into roles. I think Nick tells the story of when he actually turned up on set for Torchwood, and the production crew said, "Oh, you're coming as a real actor today," as if everything he'd been doing up to now wasn't being a real actor. And so and when you actually listen to him in something like this, and you really work out, no, this man knows how to act, and he knows how to bring out so much stuff. Aside from the technical stuff, I mean, he's a freak. Directing, music, writing. Gotta hate him.
He's a super talented guy, and he's a real nice guy. When you hear him, because you spoke to him, didn't you, recently, Dwayne?
Yeah.
So, and again, total gent doing something like this, and then it's just him in general, and his love of Doctor Who as well. He's just awesome, isn't he? He's just he's great.
Well, he was on Zoom like this, and you've got your backgrounds there, guys. You've got the TARDIS, and you've got your Cybermen and TARDIS, Bob. Nick says, "Oh, check this out," and he turned on his background. It was like a whole bunch of Exelons from Death to the Daleks. He was real proud. So that was. I actually got a screenshot of that.
Oh, I love the Exelons. Cool. But I think, like what Philip's saying there is, just thinking back to some of the different versions of Daleks he did in the new show. So you have trying to put not emotion, not into the standard Dalek, but when you go to the you could call it Scarrow and things like that, and that weird sort of, can't remember what you call him, the weird Dalek which is open. I can't remember. Dalek Khan. That's it. And he's sort of doing this slightly emotive voice, but trying to keep it Dalek. He really thinks about what he's doing and how to accent it. And like Philip says, it's a proper acting and a proper difficult job.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else on spare parts, gents?
Just a really well put together show. Yeah, it's got a classic status and well deserved.
Absolutely. It's just everything that I want, because Genesis of the Daleks is always and always will be one of the best Doctor Who adventures ever. It's a fascinating story of how the Daleks came about, and we'd had a lot of Dalek up to that point, and no real explanation. And I've always adored that. And I think you were saying before, Dwayne, about loving a Genesis story. I just would love to see this on screen. Because Victorian, eerie, kind of desolated, dead, 1984, that kind of thing. It just would look visually amazing. And I was always really gutted they never did it on TV properly. Just adapted it like they did with Human Nature. So yeah, but yeah, we've got it. It's brilliant. I would love to see a book. I'd love to see it on TV. So yeah, do more spare party stuff because it's awesome.
And just going back a little to what we were talking about earlier in relation to the Cybermen and how they're realised on TV. I grew up with getting a sense of the Cybermen in my head from the Target books, because I didn't have access to too many TV episodes at the time, even though it was constantly repeated on the ABC. I had to fight my father, who wanted to watch the news at the same time. But yes, I was often disappointed when I saw, I think Revenge of the Cybermen was one of the first episodes I bought on video. So that was rather disappointing compared to the Cybermen that I had in my head from the Target novelizations. So the spare parts actually is those Cybermen that were in my head from the Target novelizations. And I think that is what makes this story so good.
Mm.
Absolutely.
The end, full stop.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah, we've done.
All right.
Covered most.
Thank you very much for joining us, Bob. What we'd like to do is give a recommendation of. Actually, you'll have to excuse me. There's like drag races going on over behind me here on the highway. If you can hear cars going in the background.
Awesome. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, we like to give recommendations of things that we've been listening to, and share that with our listeners. So, Philip, have you got anything you'd like to share with us today?
Yes, I've just finished listening to Poison of the Daleks. So a third Doctor adventure. I avoided getting any of the third Doctor stories for quite a long time. I'm not a big fan of recasting, but I think it's also the fourth set. I got the third set because of they do the Carol and John version of the Inferno story. I wanted to hear what that was like, and actually worked. I actually enjoyed them, so I've been getting the rest of them now and listening to them. So I've finished listening to Poison of the Daleks, Brigadier, Benton, Joe, the Doctor. It's different locations. It's a good story. I enjoyed it.
Now, if you want a good example of how recasting can work successfully, grab the Third Doctor Adventures, because Tim Treloar as the Third Doctor is sensational. But not only that, now we've got John Coleshaw as the Brigadier. Absolutely brilliant stuff.
Ooh.
Love it. So
yeah, I can't tell it's not Nicholas Briggs. Not Nicholas Briggs. Nicholas Courtney. You can't tell.
He's just
John
incredible.
Coleshaw is astounding.
He does a good Third Doctor job. Like, you could have either Tim Treloar or John Coleshaw as the Third Doctor, but as the Brigadier, he is just something else. It's probably their best recast that they've ever done, I would have to say. Now, thank you for that, Philip. I'm going to recommend, since we've got Bob on from Progtor, which is supposedly a Doctor Who and music show, I'm going to recommend some music. Now, a lot of the time, Bob, you guys have recommended songs by a musician that I highly respect called Stephen Wilson. A lot of his solo stuff. Now, I've been following Stephen Wilson for many decades now. He's been going for many years. So before he went solo, he had a band called Porcupine Tree. They became really popular in the noughties, but even before that, Porcupine Tree had been going for about 10, 12 years before they even became popular. So the other day, I happened to pull out an album by Porcupine Tree, the very first one that was released in 1991, called On the Sunday of Life. So I would recommend that to my listeners today. If you want to get some psychedelic space rock, 90s style Pink Floydy trippy stuff, Porcupine Tree, On the Sunday of Life, you can't go wrong with that one. So that's my pick for this week.
I've never heard that before. I'm not big on the early Porcupine Tree stuff.
I'm going to put in a sample from that album right here. So there you go, Bob. Get into
awesome. Oh, I'll be checking it out. Yeah, I mean, I just love him. He's genius, isn't he? So yeah.
So what can you recommend for us, Bob? What have you been listening to?
As a musician, I'm really bad. I don't listen to music very much, which is, I like listening to people talking. And I don't listen to loads of podcasts anymore. I used to. Again, there's not enough time in a day. But one of my favourite, probably my favourite podcast is one with Bob Mortimer and Andy Dawson called Athletico Mints. It's just a super cool, funny podcast. Now, I'll put a prerequisite in that if you're from the north of England, you will love it because it's a certain sense of humour. But I think it's. Do you guys know who Bob Mortimer is? Vic and Bob?
No, I don't.
Cool. I don't. So they were like a big comedy duo in the sort of 90s, and have been forever. But basically, Bob Mortimer he's just let off to be his surreal and weird self. And it started out as a football podcast, and it didn't last very long. So they just take football players' names and make them really weird characters and stuff like that, and it's just cool and really funny. I'd be interested to hear what other people from other countries and counties think, but that's one I would highly recommend. I recommend it to a lot of people, a lot of non-football fans, people that like comedy, and they seem to really like it. So yeah, Athletico Mints podcast.
I'll check it out. Did you want to give us a plug for Mark Atkinson as well? He was the founder of Progtor Who, but he's not doing it at the moment. But what's he up to these days? Let's give him a plug.
Oh, all sorts, busy bugger. So he's releasing his new album. Black and white. It's a 2-disc album. An album, one side of original material, which is lovely. Mark's a great songwriter, and a side of covers, I've already heard a couple of bits, but it sounds great. He did a cover version of Queen, "Someone to Love," and he's gone crazy in the studio with harmonies and backing vocals, and it sounds mega.
I heard it. Yeah,
so
it's
he's
great.
doing that. He's doing it. It's awesome, man. And he's doing his live gigs every Tuesday online for people to tune in and watch. I think he has done a couple of gigs outside actually, in the last month or whatever, since the lockdowns eased. But he's been super busy, so he's got all that going on. So it's markatkinson.co.uk, Mark with a C. Go there, and all the stuff's on there. So just go check him out. He's brilliant. He's got for me, he's one of the best singers ever in the world. That sounds a bit extreme, but he genuinely is one of the best singers.
He's got a sensational voice. Whenever I play him at home, because he's great. Some of his softer stuff is great for background music. So I'm playing every single time I have him on. Someone turns their head and says, "Who's that?" Because how good his voice is, it just turns heads every time. So
he's just super lovely guy as well. Shit still stinks though, so can't have it all. But I think it all does, doesn't it? But yeah, he's awesome, man. Check him out. He's class.
And a massive Doctor Who fan, so you can't go wrong with him there.
Oh, he's unreal. Like, because I've been hosting, and I'm, occasionally you can't do everything for Doctor Who, and your mind gets muddled if I get one little thing wrong. Straight away, he loves it. He loves that kind, So I think he even do it on purpose now. Is just get a little bit wrong. So Mark's like, that's because he literally does everything. He could go like from Unearthly Child right the way through every Doctor episode in order, stuff like that. He's just an absolute genius.
Can't everyone do that?
I can.
You obviously haven't listened to Progtor Who, Philip.
Really couldn't. I mean, we do all right, but Mark was a super. Like he's just inside out, man. It's funny. Don't get me wrong, we're not bad, but it's just I think he's quite enjoyed jumping on us when we got stuff wrong, and still does. That's cool. Keep us in check.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much, Bob. It's been a pleasure having you on. If you want to check Bob out, go to progtorwho.co.uk. I have to give the web address.
No, don't. I took down the website.
Oh, did you?
Google Progtor Who. It comes up on the Podbean and the.
It's on Podbean, so you can find Progtor Who on Podbean.
Yeah,
and
Facebook, Progtor on Facebook, and track this out on Facebook and all that, and Twitter, I think. I don't do this. I don't do social media, so I don't know, but I know they are there. So go there, and all the links and bits will be there, I presume. So yeah.
Very good. All right. So thank you very much, Bob, and thank you, Philip. I've been in touch with Rob Valentine, Philip, and apologise for my forthrightness yesterday. So
actually, you're not leaving that in the podcast then now.
All right. Thanks, Philip, for your recommendations too. And we will catch you all again on the next instalment of the Sirens of Audio. So listen to lots of lovely audio drama, because audio drama, it rocks. There you go. Got effects to go on.
So stop recording.
Yeah, beautiful.
All right, recording stop. There we go. Cool. That was awesome, man. That was loads of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. That was great.
Parts. That was fun. It was just lovely to talk about spare parts. Yeah. So what's your crack, Philip? Are you from other podcasts, or what's